Hello everybody, and welcome to Gaming in the Wild, a video games podcast about games from the interesting artistic side of the tracks, from indie to AAA. There is a few AAA games in the show today actually, but I do have some indie things to talk about too. I'm recording on Friday the 12th of May, just a week after the Star Wars holiday of May the 4th. I covered Fallen Order last week, and I'm gonna, straight off the heels of that, talk about Jedi Survivor today, the super ambitious and very impressive sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. So the last 2 weeks have been all about Star Wars for me, which is a bit of a turn, an unexpected turn, but I got caught up in the Survivor hype. I ended up actually watching a bunch of Star Wars too. I watched the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Don't do that, by the way, it's not good. But Jedi Survivor certainly is, so I'm going to be talking about that. But today is Friday, May the 12th, and I think that from now on, a week after May the 4th, May the 12th is going to be, in my memory, for good probably, as the Tears of the Kingdom release day. So the new Zelda game is here. I had it preloaded onto my Switch. It went live at about 11 p.m. last night. I had just finished Jedi Survivor. I had been rushing to finish it, but not wanting to damage my playthrough or rush the game. But as luck would have it, I felt like it was time to wrap that game up anyway. So I wrapped it up, had something to eat, got my Switch going, opened up Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm a little embarrassed to say that by the time I looked away from my Switch, it was 6 a.m, the birds were singing, the morning light was coming through my curtains, and I had accidentally pulled an all-nighter playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some first thoughts, some spoiler-free, completely spoiler-free, very carefully chosen Tears of the Kingdom first thoughts. I'm going to review Jedi Survivor and talk about a little bit of news as well. So actually, let's start with the news. So something that has been going around in the Discord and on gamer social media for the last week, at least in my circles, was Ludonarracon. This is the annual convention run by the publisher Fellow Traveller, in which they publish a load of demos of forthcoming games, and they host a bunch of panels with various game developers talking about narrative-forward games. It's a narrative games festival. It's about game stories and game storytelling. There's been some really nice reactions to this. People have been playing the demos over in the show's Discord, and they've been talking about them there. I also listened to an episode of one of my favourite gaming podcasts, The Short Game, who they played a bunch of demos. Reagan and Laura played quite a lot of stuff. It was a great listen, so you can hear that at theshortgame.net. If you are interested in hearing more about Ludonarracon, you can go to ludonarracon.com. The demos that caught my eye, and I have them downloaded, and they are still downloadable, even though the convention itself is over. It was May the 4th to the 8th. There's a game called 1000 Times Resist, which is a sci-fi adventure game that has really caught my eye, and I have not played it yet. I have it downloaded. Someone over in the Discord did play it. I think it was Dovetail over in the Gaming in the Wild Discord, and they had some nice things to say about it. Definitely looks intriguing. There's also a demo for The Pale Beyond, which is out now. It's an Arctic survival story, so survival mechanics mixed with story mechanics. Very interested in that one. I'm going to play the demo for that too. There's a demo for Stray Gods, the musical game, which just looks wild. And finally, the one that caught my eye was Harmony Fall of Reverie. I think we saw a trailer for that one in the last Nintendo Indie Direct. This is a VN, a visual novel from the Life is Strange developers Don't Nod. I heard Daniel Bloodworth talking about that one over on the show Frame Trap, which I heavily recommend on YouTube. And he had some very interesting things to say about it, about the choices, about the storytelling, about the branching paths and the effects of choices that you were making. And I believe that the progress carries over into the game if you buy it after playing the demo of Harmony Fall of Reverie, which is also always very nice. Although I have to say, if it's coming out a year from now or whatever, and it is a narrative-led game. I would probably start again, but I know a lot of people like progress to carry over, so some of those demos will carry your progress over if you buy the game. There's also a big sale on loads of fellow traveller games. Road Warden is one that I heavily recommend. I reviewed it last year. It made my Games of the Year list. Always love to give Road Warden a shout out. It's $7 on Steam at the moment. It's a text adventure, so you have to be ready to listen to some nice music and read a lot. But it is an absolutely wonderful game, and loads of fellow traveller games are on sale. Citizen Sleeper, In Other Waters, lots of games that you'll recognise from this show. So Ludonarracon is wrapped, but there are still loads of demos to play and loads of good material out there if you would like to catch up on what happened there. I have added a game to the slate as well. It's a bit of a crowded slate, honestly, with Jedi Survivor was a 30-hour game. Tears of the Kingdom I've just started, and God knows how long that's going to be. But Planet of Lana is finally coming out, and this is a game I've talked about several times. I think everyone has seen this by now. It's got a very nice Studio Ghibli-looking style. It's a side scroller with platforming and puzzling and stealth, a little bit like something like Inside or Limbo, but with a very bright, vibrant Studio Ghibli look to the artwork. It's a sci-fi game. It looks absolutely wonderful. I have played the demo of it in the past, and I am looking forward to giving it a try. I've got a code for that one, so I'm going to load it onto my Xbox and get to it when I can. So Planet of Lana, May 23rd. It's a Steam game. It's coming out on Day 1 Game Pass, so a bit of a rough timing window as far as the promotion of that game goes, but I hope that it gets its flowers and it gets a fair amount of attention, so I'm just mentioning it here as well. But let's talk about Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, 7 hours of it in the first session is really something. This game sucked me in from the first moments and was impossible to put down until I had completed the opening area of the game. This is a wonderful game. I guess we all knew it was going to be. Breath of the Wild has a very special place in my heart. It was quite a sublime experience, and I found it to have a strange, special, kind of unique quality, and it's hard to pin down. And I'm going to be talking about this game over the next weeks with various people, so we will try to pin it down. But there is a sense of quietude in this game somehow, even though there are bits of combat here and there. There's something about the music, something about the look, light shimmering on water, even more so in this game, the dynamic clouds all around you as you travel through the skies as you are in this game. It's got that same vibe, and it wasn't until I picked up Tears of the Kingdom and started playing it that I really realized fully how much I had missed the vibe of Breath of the Wild. That was a hard game to stop playing even after 230 hours. It was a real journey, and this game is carrying the torch proudly. All of the fears that anyone had about this being like a retread of Breath of the Wild can be thrown away. This is a huge development. It ambitiously builds on the systems of Breath of the Wild. And the experience of it is just lovely. Hearing the little UI sounds, like when you open up your slate, which now has new abilities, all of the little bits and pieces that make up the nostalgic whole of Breath of the Wild, they're all here, but there are new systems too. And I'm going to be very careful about spoilers with this game. And I'm going to talk about why, because problem solving in Tears of the Kingdom is very different to Breath of the Wild. There was lots of pushing blocks to climb onto and things like that. You had a small move set and it was used to the full and it was stretched and you had to be somewhat creative. But puzzles often had one solution, as far as I recall in Breath of the Wild. That is not the case here. There is a new element of creativity in how problems are solved and how puzzles are solved in this game. It's different. There are several solutions to many puzzles, and it seems to encourage creativity and to lay a foundation for emergent stuff to happen. There seems to be so many ways to do things, and some of the early moments in this game that I already treasure were when I tried something out, it didn't work, and I tried out something else, and then I had realizations that if I just fuse this with that or use objects in a different way, then there are many ways to solve the problems that I've come across so far. And I think that the moments of realization, creativity, and discovery in this game are what sets it apart immediately from Breath of the Wild. And I don't want to take that away from anyone. I think that if I had, for example, watched a streamer solving problems in the opening area of Tears of the Kingdom, then it would have taken a certain moment away from me where I had that realization myself. And so I recommend that people try not to consume too much content, try not to listen to people's anecdotes about the wild things that they have done, because really the magic of this game is experiencing that for yourself. And that's my first thoughts on the game. It's to try and go in as blind as possible and to be careful with what you share and say to others so they can have that full experience themselves. And it is a very special experience too. I'm going to be talking about this game a lot in the future, so I will round it out by saying that I was thinking for a while about how I would play this game. I have a 4K television on which I watch movies and so forth. I have a 1440p monitor which I use for work. The output of this game looks to me like 720p, so that is less than half the resolution, about a third of the resolution of my TV and half the resolution of my monitor. I tried it out on both and did not feel that it looked right. It looked jagged and pixely and wrong. So I defaulted to play on handheld. I put on some headphones. I set the voice acting to Japanese based on the advice of a friend who said that the Japanese voice acting is better in Zelda games. And that was how I played. And so if you are thinking about how to play Zelda, I'm going to recommend that. I'm going to recommend handheld. I'm going to recommend headphones for the 3D audio that comes from different directions around you. And I'm going to recommend setting the voice acting to Japanese. I think that's the way to go. I think you'll be good to go. And I do think it is possible to discuss the fidelity of this game without getting all toxic and angry and console worry. I think it is all about really just finding how you feel comfortable playing the game. I have done so. I'm curious to hear how other people are playing it and how they feel about it, what the setup is, and I'm curious to hear about other people's reactions to it. I can't wait for this all to unfold. Tears of the Kingdom is here, and it's like Game of Christmas. So if you're playing it, then enjoy it, and please look forward to more conversation about it on this podcast next week and in the coming weeks as well. And the final item before we get into Jedi Survivor is I would like to say a big thank you to the show's latest patron, Simon, who signed up on the $3 tier last week. Thank you, Simon, for becoming a patron. Simon gets instant access to a bunch of bonus episodes, an invitation to the show's Discord server, where there is a lot of conversation going on about Tears of the Kingdom right now, and we're being very considerate. We're talking about how we're going to treat spoilers for the game, how we're going to tag things, even that are blacked out, so no one clicks on it and gets anything spoiled. There is also a channel about Jedi Survivor. There's 3 people playing it in the Discord, and we've all been sharing our screenshots and experiences. There is a word games channel. There is a short games channel where people play 1-2 hour game a month and talk about their thoughts on that. There's a lot going on our Discord. So if you would like to support this podcast, come and join our warm and lovely and caring and friendly Discord community. Get the bonus episodes. And all of that, you can do so at patreon.com/gaminginthewild. I will put a link in the show notes to that. Thank you very much to all of my existing patrons. You are all great. And thank you to you, listener, if you're thinking of joining. With all of that excitement and news and housekeeping out of the way, let's get on to the featured game of this episode, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So Star Wars Jedi Survivor is by Respawn Games. It is published by EA. It came out at the tail end of last month on PS5, Xbox Series and PC. And it's a direct sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, which I reviewed last week. So there's an episode about that game if you would like to catch up on that one. And the story of this game picks up soon after. So I would say it's definitely best to play Fallen Order first if you're thinking about whether you want to jump straight into Survivor. It's a direct story sequel, and a lot of character development happens in the first game. The characters that we meet here are midway through their journey, and I think that it really helps if you've already gotten to know them a little. Metacritic has this one at an 86 on PS5, 78 on PC. Due to a few technical difficulties on PC. I played it on PS5, and the performance is not good. There was a patch during my playthrough, and I was very excited to see that, but if anything, it introduced a few more bugs and glitches. But nonetheless, I think this is a very, very good video game, and I'm really glad that I played it. But if you're on the fence, I think the longer that you leave it, It seems like because it's EA, it's the kind of game that's going to go on sale. It's going to be patched continually, I would imagine. So if you're on the fence, maybe leave it a couple months and you'll get a smoother version of the game down the line. I would say avoid it on PC for now. Check out Digital Foundry or channels like that if you want to see how PC patches are getting on. How Long to Beat has this one at 18.5 hours for the story, 30 for main and sides, and 50 hours for completionists, which I think includes a New Game Plus playthrough probably. There are extra modes introduced after the credits. I played for about 30 hours, and I did the main quest, I did a lot of exploring, and I did a lot of side missions too, so that was quite a full playthrough, I would say, at 30 hours, and it felt right for that game. I had hit 90% completion, exploring the sprawling, secret-packed hub world of Kobo, so I really gave this one a fair swing. And it felt like value for money. It's a next-gen price. I have EA Play, so I got 10% off, but it's a $70 game, £70 game. But I would say it's worth it. It feels like a true next-gen game to me, even with that patchy performance. And the developers say about it, the story of Cal Kestis continues. Set 5 years after Fallen Order, follow Cal's increasingly desperate fight as he's pushed to the edges of the galaxy by the Empire. Cal will find himself surrounded by threats new and familiar, but how far is he willing to go to protect himself, his crew, and the legacy of the Jedi Order? And my description of this one, my little summary, is that Jedi Survivor is a laudably ambitious sequel to Fallen Order. It follows Cal Kestis through the second act of his Jedi journey. No longer a Padawan, the lightsaber combat is crunchy, fast, and better than ever, but the magic ingredient here is the world itself. It's a detailed, vibrant, populous world that brings the Star Wars universe to life in a whole new way. So to start off with a little summary of what this game is, it's a third-person action-adventure set in the Star Wars universe. You play as Cal Kestis. He was a Padawan in the first game. Now he's a fully-fledged Jedi. He's more powerful. He's grown up a little bit. He's got shoulders and a jawline now. And to be honest, Cal Kestis has kind of gotten hot. He was like a little teen. He was like a moody teen in the first game. And now he's like a strapping man. So that little ginger Jedi has become a hottie. There's a focus in the game on lightsaber combat, on tight linear mission levels, and moving between different planets on the Mantis. This is the ship that also acts as a kind of hub in the game where you can save, customize your character, talk to your crew and your pals, whoever's with you at that given moment in the game. You use the holodeck, you select a planet. You get a little light speed cutscene while it's loading in the new level. It's a very cool way to load in levels, I think. And then you get out of the ship and you're in a biome. You go and explore it. You can do story missions. This time there is an open world element to the game which adds a huge amount to it, and I'll be talking about that a lot more. And there's deeper progression. There is more of an RPG element to it. So it is an ambitious follow-up to Fallen Order. I think that's worth saying. They didn't just retread the game and improve it in some ways. They actually developed it in many directions in a really, really cool way. I'm very impressed with what they've done here. If you're interested in the timeline of Star Wars, this game is set, or these games rather, are set between episodes 3 and 4. So that earliest trilogy, which is the story of Anakin, the rise of Anakin into Darth Vader and so forth, and Chapter 4, where we meet Luke and all of the classic Star Wars characters, this is set between those trilogies, so it's directly before the events of the original Star Wars. Spoilers for Star Wars, by the way, sorry about that. But at this time, the Empire is at its peak, it is strong. Darth Vader has come to power, the Emperor has come out, democracy has been kind of crushed by the Empire. It's a takeover, like a military coup of the democratic galaxy in which Star Wars is set. And the Jedi Order is hanging by a thread, so Fallen Order is in the title, right? You're a Jedi who is lost his religion, lost his group, lost his friends, his mentor, a soul Jedi. So it's a very rough time to be a Jedi. This is probably the worst time to be a Jedi in all of Star Wars, and that's where we meet Cal. He's an individual who is out there just trying to do his best. And when we come into the game, it's 5 years after the ending of Fallen Order. Cal is working with a bunch of mercs and rebels, and he's still snapping at the heels of the Empire. And the game begins with a heist. So we come into the planet of Coruscant, which you will know is like the seat of government, the seat of power. It's a metropolis with flying cars and with huge glittering skyscrapers and people everywhere. It's a big, bustly city. And so we start the game on Coruscant, which is a really nice gift to Star Wars fans. Fan service is handled pretty well in this game, I would say. There are lots of places that we have seen before, planets that we have seen in movies, buildings that we have seen in different shows. So if you are a Star Wars fan, this game is very, very rich with Star Wars content, both new and familiar. The cityscape of the opening scene is just beautiful. Coruscant is incredible to look at. And the heist is great too. We go across rooftops, we go through buildings, we get world building from shopkeepers who have been downtrodden, from citizens. There is a heavy Imperial presence. And Cal is looking for some information about what the Empire is up to, the state of the Empire, how far it has grown, because people don't really know yet. The events are still unfolding. And we're also introduced to the new buddy system, which is a little bit like God of War. I think there are several comparisons to that game, actually, which I'll loop back to. But you know how in God of War you have a companion character who you chat to as you're moving through the worlds, who you can direct to assist you in combat, and who you can work with to open up environmental ways forward and so forth. The character that we begin with is called Bode Akuna. He's a new character. He's a jetpacking, pistol-wielding, charming, slick-backed hair, friendly guy. So we get to meet Bode Akuna. You use R1, and then you can highlight objects or highlight enemies and hit the circle button, and Bode will go and drop you a rope, move something for you so that you can get through the area, or you'll do a special attack that's on a cooldown to stun enemies and that sort of thing, or drop kick them. It's pretty cool. It's a really well implemented buddy system, and you will get various buddies throughout the game, and that's a new thing for Fallen Order. That's a new little flourish for the game. And Bode is no joke either. He's a very competent fighter. If you point him at someone, they will probably die. So I actually really like that about this game. I think in some games, NPC companions are a little toothless, and all of the fighting is left to the player. Not the case in this game. Your companions are competent fighters, and they are very useful throughout the game. Another good thing about this game, Cal has all of the abilities that you end Fallen Order with. So although it is a Metroidvania, it doesn't do that classic Super Metroid thing where for some reason Cal's connection with the Force is damaged and he has to relearn all of the abilities. He has his full skill set, and that is a gift. It's a really good decision that they have taken. It means that you can wall run. It means that you can double jump. It means that you can use the Force in various ways, in both traversal and combat, pushing and pulling and so forth. It is an absolutely wonderful skill set that makes you feel nimble, that makes you feel mobile, and they've built the game around a fully powered up Cal, and there's a new skill tree that just opens up new skills that build on that skill set from the end of Fallen Order. It also works for me narratively, because if part of the narrative of this game is that you're playing as an older, more developed Cal, it feels that way. It feels that way in his abilities. He's a Jedi now. He's no longer a learner. He's no longer a student. There is a new skill that is confusion that you can use to temporarily turn an enemy to your side. So there's lots going on. There's some new tricks in the game, and I think that was just a great decision that they made. I would also say that I love the fact that the combat feels different now. I think in Jedi Fallen Order, the lightsaber combat, where you're bouncing back blaster bolts, you're charging in, you're lifting someone up to take them out of the game, you're trying to prioritize enemies that come at you in different configurations, different mobs. If you're coming downstairs, you can push a stormtrooper off a stairway and he just goes out into the void. There's lots of different creative and fun ways to choose the abilities that you like and have that Jedi power fantasy. And the combat feels different. It feels like Cal is older. In the first game, I often felt like I was clinging on for dear life, especially in boss fights, and that felt narratively right. In this game, Cal feels faster, more destructive, more confident. There are new abilities that affect groups, so his force powers and his combat skills have grown, and you feel that in the combat. It's like a different atmosphere to the combat. Cal is a real warrior now, and I think that you really feel that in this game. There is also a much deeper customization system now for Cal, so you can really kind of make him your own, and you can, even though it's a character-led game, you can roleplay this game. The character customization is great. You can change Cal's hairstyle, you can change his facial hair, you can change his t-shirt or top. his jacket, his trousers. So you can dress Cal, and there is a really wide range of options for making Cal how you want him to be. Early in the game, I found a secret chest that had a mullet in it, like this hipster mullet. It's hilarious. It's like shaved sides of the hair and a long back. I gave him a full bushy beard and a snazzy leather bomber jacket. And my Cal looked like this kind of little loose, little lost kind of 2010 Bushwick or Shoreditch hipster guy, and I absolutely loved him for that. That became who Cal was to me. He always looked like he had like a slight hangover and someone that would probably have a cigarette for you if you wanted one. I did experiment with different looks for Cal throughout the game. Like I thought, if serious events happen in the story, maybe Cal would like tune himself up a bit. Maybe he would get ready for combat. There is combat garb that you can wear, like soldier costume sort of thing. And Carlos from the So Video Games podcast shared his Cal, and his Cal had like a shaved head, a tactical bulletproof vest, and like these combat pockets on his trousers, and black gloves, and he looked like a soldier, like a hardcore military man. And it imbued Cal with a totally different energy. Mine had like Han Solo energy, and that had like Call of Duty energy. And it made me think of, like, that's a vast difference. I think the scenes would play very differently based on whether you're playing Cal as this kind of hardened warrior or this kind of lost soul that I played him as. I did experiment also in the late game with, like, humble Jedi garb, like robes and, like, a shorter hair, more clipped and more proper. It didn't feel right. It wasn't who my Cal was. My Cal didn't have a Jedi Order to belong to. The Jedi Order is kind of gone at this point in the Star Wars history. He's a stray, and he was expressing himself and becoming his own person. So I was really happy with the depth of the customization that is available to you in this game, and I think it added a lot to my playthrough. So without wishing to spoil the intro at all, the upshot of it is Cal finds the information he's after, and he needs to stop somewhere to get the ship repaired. He's still flying the Mantis, although Grease and Sia are no longer with him. He's flying solo, but he decides to go and park on a planet called Kobo, and this becomes the hub world of the game, and this is an absolutely fantastic opening up. This is where the game opens up after that spectacular first mission. And you have to work your way through this world from where your ship has somewhat crash-landed, and you have to go and find Grease to try and get the ship fixed. So you're looking for your old buddy. And what that amounts to is that you're going to move through linear sections of world with wall running, with double jumping, with all of that cool traversal, with different enemies to fight along the way. And you'll see things that you can't get into yet. You'll see fuse boxes that need skills that you don't have. You'll see force fields that you cannot yet get through. So it's that fun feeling of clocking future things for your Metroidvania fix, where you know you're going to be coming back through this area later. But the world really opens up. And this was a bit of a revelation to me. I'd heard that this game had open world elements, but Kobo is just vast. It is really fun, and it is a world that is really lively. It's really full of life. It reminded me a little bit of the greatest strength of Fallout 4, if you've played that one. The way that Fallout 4 handles the world building is that there are layers of history. There is the moment that the world is in as you find it, but there is how it was before. Buildings weren't always being used for what they were being used for. Sometimes they were 3 levels deep. Let's say you go to a hospital building that was once inhabited by post-apocalyptic people, but now is inhabited by these mutants who murdered them all. So you've got 3 layers of history in the building, and that kind of world building and history building is present throughout Kobo. It's really, really cool. You'll find Jedi ruins that have been overcome by time and nature. You'll find prospector camps in the caves and mountains where what came after the current reality of this planet, prospectors looking for jewels and gems and things, they are everywhere. Sometimes you'll meet one who is living. Often you will find their bodies and the diaries of their ill-fated endeavors. You'll find bandit camps, some of which are full of bandits, some of which have been abandoned because they've been taken over by hostile local fauna. You'll find Imperial ships, some of which have been overtaken by those bandits who were displaced and who have started repurposing Imperial technology. and the Empire itself, of course, always knocking around in dark corners, investigating, prying into the different areas that you will find. You will also meet characters who will tell you rumours which are pinned onto your map that you can go and investigate if you want. There are loads and loads and loads of secret areas that are completely optional, but to me were the heart of the game, and the exploration and the learning about this world and sinking into it. It's a vivid, interesting, lived-in world. And at the centre of Kobo, the centre of the map, is Rambler's Reach. This is a town. This is where Grease is living, the pilot from the first game. It's a town of waifs and strays. It is desolate. It is dusty. It feels like an outback town. And when you first get there, the doors are closed, the windows are shut, no one's around, the houses are locked up, people are under pressure from bandits, they're fearful of the Empire. And that kind of reflects the moment of history that we are in, as described in the Star Wars universe. But there is a bar in the centre of Rambler's Reach. It is a bar called Pyloon's Saloon. It is run by Grease, the little blue-skinned, waist-high, four-armed, smart-talking pilot from the first game, and one of Cal's best friends. When you first walk into the bar, it is dusty, it's desolate, it's empty. There's one person sleeping at the bar. There are booths full of boxes and trash. There is a stage that is curtained off, just covered in crates. There are beer kegs everywhere. Everything is dusty and falling apart. The toilet doesn't work. All the doors are locked off and blocked and stuff. But it has a bit of potential. It has a vibe to it. And you start to poke around a little bit. And as you play the game, the bar will become a really interesting spot that you'll return to again and again and again. And I absolutely love Pyloon's Saloon, so I'm going to talk at length about it now. First of all, the design of it. There is this robot barman. So the bar is like a long straight bar that curves at the edges. It goes down stairs behind and into the kitchen area in the basement. And along the inside of the bar, there is a rail. And the robot barman is attached to the rail. He has a big glass head and 4 arms so he can serve all the customers. And he glides around the inside of the bar attached to this rail like a little robot train. He is charming and funny. The design is just genius. It really, really works. It looks like something that would work, as well as just being cool. You can imagine this actually working in the future. Maybe it's out there in the world now. It's like a bar in Tokyo or something with the robot barman. He glides from customer to customer. He goes down to cook food and comes back with it. He's always got a rumour for you, always got a word for you. And bringing this bar to life was probably my favourite thing in this game, actually. As you walk around in the world, you'll find waifs and strays. You'll find those prospectors who have lost their friends in an avalanche or whatever. You'll meet an archaeologist who's out of her depth because there are monsters around. You'll meet old droids who just have nowhere to stay. You'll meet people that are in trouble. And you can point them back to the bar. They will go there, and when you come back, it means that there are new people to talk to. They all have so much dialogue. They move around in the bar. They're not always in the same spot, most of them. Sometimes you'll witness conversations between them, like incidental conversations. And they bring different functionalities too, like different little side missions that you can go on. They'll tell you rumors. They'll ask you to get resources and give you things in exchange. They've all got their own stories and trajectories. And as the bar fills up, it becomes like a really cool, lively spot. The beating heart of the town and the beating heart of the game. It really elevated the game for me, what they did here, this wonderful hub within a hub. It's a hub within a hub world. And I'm going to run through a few of the things that happen in the bar as the game progresses. I guess if you want to discover these blind, you might want to forward on a few minutes. But I think they're worth talking about because they are big parts of the game and it feels a little sad to leave them out of this review. So of the side games in the bar, there were a couple of smaller ones. For example, there is a huge fish tank. It's the centerpiece of the bar. It goes up into the second floor. You can see it behind the barman. It's filthy and empty when you first arrive, but as you walk around the world, you'll meet this guy who is like a fish guy, and he will catch fish for you, tell you a little something about them, take them back, put them in the tank. You can look in the tank when you get back. You can look at the cleanliness of it. You can use a camera to go into the tank and look at the fish. It's just a fun little thing that starts to feel like the bar is coming back to life. There is a rooftop garden that opens up. You can collect seeds out in the wild. You see these plants that have a little golden insect swirling around them. If you chop them down, you can collect a seed. The seed game is really fun. You get a little plot. It's like got a hex grid on it. You enter a little editing mode. You can plant your seeds, you can choose the colours, you can arrange them in different ways. You arrange big and small and medium-sized plants that take up a different amount of space. When you go away, they will grow. When you come back, they have grown, and you can look at your garden, which starts to get more beautiful as time goes on. So it's another reason to feel invested in the bar. But best of all is the holo chess. You will meet this chess master out in the world who will open up a side room of Pyloons, and there is a whole game within a game. Think Gwent, think Machine Strike from Horizon, and this is my favourite game within a game that I've played, I think, because it's attached to your gameplay. So when you're out in the world, when you kill a new enemy for the first time, say you meet a stormtrooper who has a flamethrower, or you meet a bandit who uses an electric hammer, a war hammer, when you kill them for the first time, you scan them. They go into your holodecks, and they become a unit that you can play in holochess. They become a new piece in your arsenal. So it's like collecting cards in Gwent, but it is directly related to combat and progression, because you will meet different enemy types as you progress through the game, and it means that your moveset grows in the holochess. So between missions, you can pop back, play a game against the different characters that end up in the bar, against your colleagues and crewmates and some of the cool waifs and strays. And the way that the game works is that there is a big board. You have some squares, your opponent has some squares, and there's an area in the middle. You get action points. You can choose which units you want to spend them on, whether you want to get cheap stormtroopers and have 12 stormtroopers just blasting, if you feel like that's the right move to make, or you can have scout troopers with melee attacks. You can have wildlife, you can use monsters, you can use bandit brawlers of various speeds. You can have more powerful units like a big security droid that's going to cost you a lot and take a lot of hits, but is vulnerable to grenades or to things that will push back melee attacks. You get special units like snipers, etc. You can get bigger, powerful creatures as you progress through the game. There are 3 rounds, sometimes 4, and you have to strategically place your units on the board in each round based on what your enemy is throwing at you. And then you hit go, and then you just watch the battle unfold. There is no further gameplay, but watching the battle unfold is really fun. These little holographic units just charge at each other. You might get crushed. Say there's like a giant creature on the other team, and you put down 10 stormtroopers. Maybe it just tears through them straight away, and you're like, okay, that wasn't the strategy. Maybe I need something else here. A strategy I often employed was to have a couple stormtroopers to draw the enemy's attention, whilst more powerful ranged units hit them from far away, and see if I could keep them busy long enough to take them down, that kind of thing. So lots and lots of different strategies. The board is always set up differently, and your moveset grows as you move through the game. It's simple, it's genius, it looks like holochess from the original Millennium Falcon seating area, but it's tied to the gameplay and the progression of Jedi Survivor in such a cool way. I would play an entire game of this. I got obsessed with it. I want the holochess DLC and spin-off game, please. So with all these mini-games and the detailed environment itself, Pyloon Saloon is just the best bar I've seen in a video game. The level of detail really springs out here too, like the posters, the furniture, graffiti. There's a bathroom where you can wash your hands and use the sink. There are denizens and onlookers. There's games, gardening, locked doors that slowly open up, the stage that gets dusted off, new friends arriving, new lines of dialogue. Whenever you come back from a significant story mission, you'll get a little pop-up saying new dialogue available in the bar, so you know that anyone that you talk to will have some more things to say than they did last time. The interesting conversations that you have build the world, and just looking around the environment of this bar is just wonderful. In the basement, there is somewhere where you have a bunk and a little customization table. I always love a game where you have a home. It feels good to have a home in a game. In this game, you have a couple. I guess you have the Mantis ship, you have this basement apartment, and the bar. So it's just one of the most memorable, vibey, lived-in spaces that I can think of. It felt like coming home every time that I went back there. And so I spent a lot of my time in this game exploring, finding different paint jobs, finding different color schemes, finding different power-ups. It has all the same power-ups as Fallen Order, so you'll be finding increases to your health, increases to your force, skill points that you can spend on the new skill tree. Your lightsaber now has more parts and more colors. BD1 is more customizable. Lots of cosmetic stuff, but I felt like it was just better. The customization in Fallen Order was a little bit lame. There wasn't much you could change, but now you can change everything about Cal, everything about BD1. And another thing that is new about this game is combat stances. In the initial game, you could play with double blades, you could play with twin blades, or you could play with a single lightsaber. So you had 3 weapon options. In this game, that grows. You get like a heavy two-handed blade, which is slow but powerful. And you get a really fun blaster stance as well, where you do rapier-style fencing moves to charge up your ammunition, and then you can do shots and charged shots from range with a blaster. It's just like Hyperlight Drifter, actually. So you go in for melee attacks, then you back off and shoot from far away. It's strategic and fun. So I used the double blade attack, which is just rapid combos that aren't powerful, but can combo lock opponents. And I used the blaster stance just because I found it to be fun. So there was new life and fresh air in the combat system as well. And as well as all of that stuff, the game does have a story, of course. It is a narrative-led game. The story here revolves around some new Star Wars lore of the High Republic. This is an age of the Republic that came before the Republic that we know from the first Star Wars trilogy. It's very interesting, actually. It has like Baroque sci-fi architecture and high ideals that you'll find out about, where Jedi are treated like the highest class of trusted, respected heroes and elders. And we often talk about retrofuturism in games, like the Fallout universe. It's that 60s style future, or like the spandex sci-fi era, where everyone's wearing these like tight costumes and walking around in tinfoil hats and stuff. They're old ideas of what the future might look like. But what's interesting about the High Republic is that it's more like future retroism than retrofuturism. It's like a sci-fi era that we're looking at as part of a fictional history. And I think that's pretty cool. It's not something that I've seen a lot of. The upshot of all of that is that in the past, there was a power struggle in the High Republic with a rogue Jedi who you'll be dealing with a little bit in this game. They have somehow managed to, have some longevity and they're out of deep freeze and back. You'll be chasing them around and finding out what they're up to. And there is this whole plot about the High Republic, the history of the Republic, the prehistory of the fallen Republic, and this nasty villain that you're facing off against. I'm going to be honest, the story in the first half of the game is pretty compelling. It's like when you're on your way into it and you feel like you are untangling the clues, it's really cool, actually. You're exploring these strange old temples and long dormant installations, trying to find out what they are all about. But as the story progresses and it gets into that more like Hollywood blockbuster action sequences and high ideals flying around and character conflict within Cal, and I don't think that the back half of the game really lands. I think that there were lots of MacGuffins to find. There were several antagonists that you burned through, none of whom felt like they had real gravitas to me. So the back half of the plot deteriorates quite significantly compared to the front half, and the story kind of crash lands. I thought the ending was abrupt and unsatisfying, but I don't want to let that drag down what I say about this game, because the game is really saved by the world itself, the open world sections, the gameplay. Your allies, they're full of personality, the characters, the bar, the town. A little bit of romance, and the grand adventure and the feeling of being in the Star Wars universe. So even if you're running from planet to planet, not really caring why you are doing it exactly, whether you have to go and get like a key card or a secret data package or another MacGuffin, like a special key that you're going to need or something like that, and who someone has now stolen, even though you had it a moment ago, all of that stuff comes and goes. But flying from planet to planet, getting into wild adventures, fighting bosses and exploring, traversing, uncovering secrets, meeting people that go back to the bar, finding bits of High Republic lore, doing these shrines, doing optional bosses, uncovering all of this layered history of the world. It really carries the game. It carries a weak story, I would say. And it's one of those games where you can choose when you want to do a story mission. They are probably half an hour long. And then the next 2 hours, you're going to be playing holo chess, planting seeds, talking to everyone, and just running around doing all of the Metroidvania stuff that your new skills will allow you to access secret rooms where there is yet more lore, yet more bosses, etc. So it's a very successful open world game with a slightly weak story that is carried by the game itself and does not affect the experience that much. in my opinion, at least. So let's run through some of the good things and bad things. I would say the good things are that this game fixes almost all of the issues that I had with Fallen Order. It has a better structure to the game. The open world sections are a vision. Kobo is just brilliant. The level design is better most of the time. Some of the issues persist, but I'll get to that. The rewards are better. The customization is better. Opening chests feels more satisfying because there's better stuff in them. And it just feels like the whole thing is hanging together much better than Fallen Order, which feels somewhat rudimentary in hindsight and by comparison to this game. So I think the developers deserve applause for being ambitious, for seeing the problems of the game and for fixing it. Also, the dusty Star Wars frontier. It's just wonderful. The mood, the look, the music, the vehicle design, speeders, and the building design, the architecture, the artwork inside the buildings, the sheer level of detail, the amount of assets, and the texture and the feel and the light. It justifies the monster file size of the game. I think it's the biggest game I've ever downloaded. It's 150 gig or something. But when you're in the game and you see that the bar itself, the interior, there are kegs, there are bottles, glasses, everything is where it should be. It looks like a real place, and it feels like a real place. And the sheer amount of assets they've packed into the game, and the sheer amount of creativity and art design chops that have gone into making this universe is very impressive. The traversal is wonderful too. I love that you start with the full moveset. It's acrobatic, it's smooth, it's satisfying. Some of the stuff that you will do where your feet don't touch the ground for a really long time because you're just wall running, rope swinging, double jumping, dashing. There's an air dash now, really, really adds something. The combat is great, sharper, faster, more aggressive, more options, more stances. I think fan service is handled very well in this game. Like, you will see walkers, you will see Jawas, you will see all of the things that you know and love from the Star Wars universe. Maybe it's a side quest, maybe it's an incidental character, maybe it's backdrop, but it's all there and it all feels great. It's a really brilliant game. As for the bad stuff, performance. It even hitches on the Respawn logo when you open the game. The frame rate drops constantly. I played on performance mode. It ran at 1440p. It was aiming for 60 FPS. It was not stable. The resolution was fine, although it did cull some of the detail from the world. I played for a little bit in 4K 30, but 30 was not stable, but the resolution looked great. So, it's that current console generation compromise that you have to make. But I think that the game is so good that I didn't mind the performance in this case. And while they've fixed most of the issues of the old game, some of them remain. The main one is environmental readability. It is much better than Fallen Order, but it's still a bit of a problem. Sometimes I would come to a dead end and I'd be like, I feel like I'm supposed to be moving on from here. And I could even look at the map and it might show me like the rough area I'm supposed to be moving through, but I could not see a way forward for the life of me. And often it turned out, like 90% of the time, that there's a crack that you're supposed to squeeze through, and it just doesn't look like it. It looks like just it fades into the background. So again, it's that yellow paint problem of like not quite signifying subtle squeeze spaces enough that leads to some player frustration. So that's like a bit of a hangover from the old game. And that came up like 5-6 times in the game. The same with climbable surfaces. So often I'd be lost looking around, looking for my way forward, get a little frustrated. I used a video once or twice, and it was just literally a climbing surface that was right in front of me, a wire mesh that is supposed to signify climbable, but looks like the non-climbable type of mesh that is also everywhere in the level. So I think environmental readability still needs some tuning. The level design starts strong, but it takes a bit of a downturn in the back half. I think Kobo, the main heartbeat of the game, is perfection. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it, but I think that you can tell that that's where a lot of the time has gone. A lot of time has gone into making the town nice, the bar nice, and making Kobo fun and fluid. But some of the other worlds feel like they had less work on them, less refined, a little more glitchy, a little less well-structured. So whilst Kobo is the beating heart of the game, I would say that Jeddah is less fun and less interesting, and some of the other areas that you're going to go to, like a moon and a base, they felt a little more basic. So I think you can see the lines where there are high-intensity areas that have been made perfect and polished, and other areas that are a little less so. I also found a few bugged side quests that felt like they needed some love, like little optional areas that you can get into later in the game. There were platforms that didn't spawn correctly, or me respawning in midair and falling to my death multiple times. There were some pretty bad glitches in cutscenes towards the end of the game, with characters kind of flashing around the screen, or not spawning where they were supposed to be. So sometimes Cal was just like speaking to the air. I actually got that in a boss cutscene. After beating a boss, the boss just glitched around the screen and vanished. So Cal was having a conversation with no one. A bit of a shame. But overall, I think my thoughts on this game, it evolved throughout my playthrough. I think for the first 20 hours of this game, I was thinking this is like a 10 out of 10 game. I was thinking this feels like it belongs next to Horizon, next to God of War 2018. And to some degree, I still think that. But the thing is with Horizon, and the thing is with God of War 2018, they were polished and they had everything in the right place. But the stories were also really strong. And so the cinematic nature of those AAA Sony games, matched with really polished, sleek, good gameplay, leads to that polished gem feel that we get from those top-tier Sony games. Last of Us, that kind of stuff. This game is the closest that I've seen anyone come to getting there. It lacks the polish of like a Naughty Dog game or a Guerrilla game, but it has so much in it. It's so ambitious. It swings so big. It is a real blockbuster, and it's a real AAA gem. As far as Star Wars stuff goes, I think it goes straight into the top tier with Andor, with Rogue One and that kind of thing. Just the world, just the universe itself. It's just a wonderful, epic visualization and realization of what the Star Wars universe can look like in an interactive game form. So while it had its weaknesses, I think for 20 hours it was a 10 out of 10. In hindsight, I think that the Metacritic 85 is fine and fair. Maybe if those performance patches come in and it gets smoothed out, less glitches, less glitched quests, a little more polish, that might rise up to a 9 out of 10. But I can't wait to see what they do with the third game. I really genuinely loved this game in a way that I was not expecting to. A really good game and a really pleasant surprise. I'm really glad that I played it. That's Jedi Survivor. So there we go, Jedi Survivor. What a nice surprise it was. It's such an impressive upgrade from the last game. It's so ambitious. They've swung so big with it. There is so much packed in. That chess game is just something else. I really, really hope they do something with it. Hope you enjoyed that review as well. If you were playing Jedi Fallen Order, or if you're playing Tears of the Kingdom, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree with my takes, or if you've got different takes on them, on fidelity, on quality, on all of that kind of stuff, and how you're enjoying the games. You can find me on Twitter at Gaming in the Wild, also Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, elsewhere as well. You're also welcome to come and join that Patreon Discord. That's patreon.com/GamingInTheWild. I'll be back next week. I guess I'm going to be talking about Tears of the Kingdom in more detail. So I hope you'll be back to join me for that. For now, that's it. Take care of yourselves and each other, and bye-bye for now.